What is going on, everyone?
How's it going, everyone?
We are back with a Resident Evil Village map breakdown.
The real one.
The real one.
Instead of the meme one.
Everyone wanted us to see.
Yes, a lot of comments in the good old YouTube comment
We heard
section.
you, and we listened.
Yes.
Over the past few weeks of the bunch of Village goodness that has come out. And this map, you may be asking, where's it from, John?
It's from the Collector's Edition, Anthony.
Yeah.
We're apparently getting a nice cloth map.
That lays out the map of the whole game, clearly.
Yeah. I'm excited for it being a cloth map, too, because it's going to be nice and colorful. Like, obviously,
Yeah.
there's not a lot of colors on here.
Mm-hmm.
It's a sepia or whatever that term is.
Yeah.
But it's going to be nice quality, and the lines are going to stay. It's going to be heavy. I'm going to like it.
Any RE artwork that we get from these collector's editions, we always like to see and to hang up on the wall and stuff like that. And we know the village is going to look awesome when we actually see it. But this is an overview of the whole village, and we're going to talk about each section of the map, starting with
House Beneviento or Beneviento or Beneviento, whatever you want to say.
On its symbol.
Yeah, so the crests we've already seen. We're not going to go too far into detail with those in this video just because we've already kind of talked about those crests.
Especially in the screenshot breakdown.
Yes.
So if you want us to talk more about the symbols and what they represent, and obviously they're shown all over this map, we do go in detail on that video.
Absolutely. So starting right from the top of the map, there is a tall figure seemingly holding a garden sickle or a scythe or scythe.
Looks very Grim Reaper-esque.
Very Grim Reaper-esque, yeah. You can even see that it's a curved scythe or a sickle. We're just going to go with the word scythe for now because that's fine with me. I don't really care. So it's a scythe. You even see like the stick that they would use. So the way that they would hold the scythe is they'd hold it, and then they'd grab that stick as extra support and swing it. Because instead of having both of your hands on the main shaft, lol, you would have one of your hands on the optional shaft, lol. Ethan's probably really good at that because he only has two hands. But
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, floating hands. He could grab any
good
shaft.
old Ethan, yeah.
But yeah, so you see that. I think the most interesting detail about this hooded figure, some people are saying it's Mother Miranda. Some people are saying it's the Grim Reaper. Some people are saying it's just,
something else.
a villager who had maybe one too many trips to Taco Bell, and he's got a little long. You know what I mean? I think the most interesting detail about this figure is it does appear to be wearing some type of skull on its head. It almost
looks skeletal.
It looks skeletal, yeah. It almost looks like a bird skull,
right?
Which would be fitting for this creature because, ever since the dawn of Resident Evil, crows and ravens have played a huge role.
Yeah.
In just the imagery for Resident Evil. The raven with the eye. They killed Forrest. There's so many different things with crows. But the most interesting thing to me, as I've been building up this hype, it appears to have what looks to be multi-arms.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it has 4 arms. 4, like, stick arms.
Right.
Which is very interesting. Obviously, me and Anthony aren't going to front. We don't know anything about this creature. We don't know if it's going to have any relevance in the game. We're just going off of basically what we can see
what
here.
We're seeing, yeah.
What do you think about that? The fact that it almost looks like an insect in some ways, like that little insect head.
Yeah, it looks really reminiscent to what we've seen in some of the enemy designs so far in Village. So it definitely seems to be in some kind of relation with that. It also looks like it's standing next to what appears to be a waterfall, which maybe we may explore or go through or pass.
Yeah, it definitely seems to be a key figure in this entire map.
Yeah, because then it looks like the house is on like a cliffside, and this creature, the sickle-wielding creature, or whatever this is, looks like it's looking over it or protecting it. Perhaps there's boss entry points or exit points when you're trying to get out of each house or each section. So maybe this might be a boss, perhaps, when we enter the House of Beneviento or leaving. I don't know, how they're going to map it out, but maybe that has some kind of relevancy to that. Looks pretty cool, though.
Interestingly, House Beneviento seems to be, like you said, on a rock face or a cliff where this waterfall is kind of leading down past them. but it also looks like the only way to get there is through what is marked on the map as the suspension bridge.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of see, it doesn't look, some people were saying it looks kind of like two bridges. I think it's just supposed to represent the bridge and its reflection in water.
Right, yeah. I see what they mean by like the two that are underneath
yeah,
the main
it looks
one.
like there's two underneath of it. But this suspension bridge seemingly is the only way to get there from what the map looks like, other than, you know, possibly the forest that's underneath of the House Beneviento crest.
There may be other ways to get to one point or the other.
But it leads directly to Castle Dimitrescu, which is our next area that we're going to look at here on the map.
Yep.
What do you think about that? Do you think there's going to be a connection between those two houses?
Yeah, I think you might either do the House of Beneviento first into the Castle Dimitrescu or vice versa. Like whatever way you start, or maybe you could get to choose which one you do first, depending on how they let you play the game. But it looks like it connects somehow. I think that you're going to have to probably fight, because right above the castle you see the gargoyles, which we talked about in the screenshot breakdown in depth with the actual screenshots, and perhaps you're going to be fighting them. Maybe that suspension bridge could be linked up to the cable car lines that we saw, or some kind of like lines that we saw running along the castle, perhaps. I have a feeling no matter which way you're going to whatever house in which order, I feel like the gargoyles are going to be flying over the castle, overseeing it for whatever reason. So you might have to fight that enemy out there. But the castle looks intricate as fuck. I mean, clearly in the maiden demo, we only scratched the surface as to what we get to see in Dimitrescu, but we know that Castle Dimitrescu is
massive,
and it looks like it's like heightened in comparison to everywhere else. It looks like the most designed, the most money, the wealth shines through in this area.
Definitely looks like the centerpiece. Yeah. It's literally in the center top of the map.
Right.
Which we're going to get to the actual center in a little bit here.
Yeah, exactly. Plenty of it in here.
Yeah, there's plenty of this breakdown. It's going to be a little bit of a longer video, just because we're going to kind of talk about everything that we see here.
Exactly. That's what you guys wanted, so here we go.
Yeah, so, you know, Castle Dimitrescu has the advantage of being the main focus of the demo, right? So with us being there already, us as players probably have the most emotional and physical, literally, because we've played it. We've played through the demo.
Even as a different character. We saw literally from the start to finish the maiden get killed. So it's like we already saw someone.
But we have that attachment to this castle. So like this is also the focus of what we've basically been presented with. A lot of the stuff that they show
it's all in there.
Is all castle and then some village. We have not seen House Beneviento. We have not seen the Stronghold. We have not seen the Heisenberg factory, unless the one scene with Heisenberg is in the factory.
And we just don't know it
And we
yet.
just don't know it yet. But we haven't really seen these areas or the reservoir, which we're going to go into detail about everything that we see.
Yep.
The next area, though, is Otto's mill. And a mill, for the most part, is a building that's fitted, by definition, a building that's fitted for manufacturing, whether it be in this time period in the 50s, where this game is kind of reaching back to. It doesn't take place in the 50s, but it's reaching back to the 50s. This probably would have been used to manufacture like wheat, flour,
steel, grain.
Steel is another thing that mills are used for. Grain's another thing that mills can be used for. So it's interesting that this has a very direct area on the map, because it signifies maybe where they get their food. I'd be willing to bet it's a food mill.
I'd be willing to also bet that it possibly is where you can resupply with the merchant, with the Duke. At that, I feel like he might be in these little like small pockets in between bigger areas, because like whether you're coming from the Stronghold or Castle Dimitrescu, this leaves a middle section to kind of link it between. And like you notice how like in Resident Evil 4, after each like big part of that map, there's a merchant just hanging in between part. Now whether or not, it might just be another area where enemies can just ambush you. I don't know. We don't know, but
we don't know how the merchant's going to work.
Right.
Because the Duke himself, they kind of gave the opinion that he's going to be in different situations, but they also I think we've only seen him in 2 different locations.
Right.
So
that's true.
He might only be in 4 locations total in the whole game. depending on if they go for this more open.
Would they pull
world.
RE4 where you see the merchant like
Every
three
fucking-
times in the castle, like he's
literally
just in the
every-
castle, versus having him maybe like once in the beginning of the Dimitrescu castle section, and then it's That's a pretty good point. I'm curious to see how they're gonna use him in like you said, like how much are you gonna space it out to where you don't give the character that much of an advantage.
Yes.
But yeah, who knows what lurks beyond the mill, which is right next to the Stronghold, which looks kind of. I mean, it's hard to really look at what they're showing here. It looks like there's like a wall around it. It looks like there's some kind of like
There's a very tall tower.
a very tall tower.
A very
yeah.
tall tower. Like it's
It's
almost
like a
like
watchtower. It looks like
It's almost like the tower that I'm reaching here because it's the first thing that came to my mind. But like Fiona was in Shrek.
right.
Like the tallest tower.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's somebody's locked away up there. It could be
Fucking Shrek. God damn
Yeah,
it.
Shrek is. Don't get me started on a tangent because I was.
You had to pull Shrek.
I was
out.
looking at my Fire Stick the other day, and apparently there's a Shrek movie I never saw, and I was like, really?
It's probably a reason
There's
why
a
you never
fifth
saw it.
one or something like that. Shrekly Ever After. Or
It's like that
something.
tower from Shrek.
It's like that tower. Hey, it's that tower from Shrek. But no. Shout out to all you Shrek fans. I'm sure there's like one of you
All 10 of you.
in the comments. But yeah, the Stronghold. What was a Stronghold used for, Anthony?
Strongholds were a place that is meant to protect against any attack. If they're protecting against something important, because we know that there could be some division going on here within the parts of the village. So what else could be attacking this specific location? Who was attacking it? Obviously, was it built from the past? Like John said, a lot of this lore from this area goes into the 50s and even earlier. We haven't even seen more files like that yet. So maybe at one point it was built for something else, and now it's used for whatever remnants is left.
Yeah, it could be anything.
And
it could be Miranda's house. Like it could be where not her house, but it could be where Miranda's like hauling up.
Right.
The
like
Stronghold.
You're trying to protect something important. So what lurks beyond there? We suspect the coffin that we saw in the last breakdown that we did for the trailer to be inside the castle. That's what we suspect. We're just speculating. But so what else can be on the Stronghold? What other important things can they be holding behind the doors or walls? We'll see.
It could be so many things. It
Not
could
Shrek.
be it could be where the Stronghold could be where they're taking Rose, Ethan's daughter, Ethan and Mia's daughter.
Because it's still out there, like where the castle
Yeah.
is. Like it's further out. It looks like there's some woods, like all where the trees are. They're shaded
Oh
in.
yeah, there's woods everywhere.
So I wonder if you're going to have to go through those trails and go through.
Now, I have to bring this up before we get into the rest of it because I believe the rest of it's pretty relevant. And the Stronghold is the only. I would say. Would you say that's the only one that's kind of like sticking out a big bit?
A little bit, yeah.
Because it's
I would
like so
say.
different than everything else
it
than what we
does.
know so far, right?
Right.
What would you say? I'm saying this is what it's going to do, and I highly doubt it's going to do this anyway because the map is the collector's edition. So obviously, I would hope you would be able to go everywhere. But what do you think about possibly the Stronghold being a DLC area that you get added onto, and then you can go there and maybe link up with like better weapons and stuff?
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put it past them because we've seen areas in RE7 that we didn't get to explore as far as End of Zoe and Not a Hero and similar and the same areas as well. So they could easily do that. They're going to easily be an area of the village where we're like, why can't we get to that? And we see it the whole game. The game ends, and then all of a sudden it's like...
And then there's a
if you
DLC
get
for
the
it.
DLC, and then that obviously may be before the story we just played or after, whatever they decide to do again. But that it could be. And if they did, then how important are you going to make that area enough for it to be
Ooh.
DLC?
You know what I just thought of? You know the girl in the trailer that is like escaping
Like with the old man?
with the old man? What if the Stronghold is where you start with her?
Right.
And maybe if she's a playable character and there is some stealth sections of the game, kind of like the maiden demo, what if that is where you start with her? What if that's her DLC area? What if that's it? What if it's not DLC? That's the wrong word because I don't think they're going to make it. I think they learned from 7
I hope so.
that Resident Evil fans don't want to pay for the DLC, like
I hope
the
so.
story DLC.
Yeah, make all of the village playable.
what if the Stronghold is her story, her campaign? That girl is in the trailer.
She's in there, and actually,
she's in the village.
She's in the village, and this
Louisa's
house. We think Louisa, or whoever that is the old man that is with Emily, or this girl.
We'll call her Emily.
We'll call
just
her
for now.
Emily.
Yeah.
Girl with brunette girl running in the forest looking.
Anthony,
fucking,
it's Claire Redfield.
That's clearly voiced by Nicole Tompkins. But,
yeah, she's Nicole Tompkins. Yeah.
The big thing here is that we know that this is connected to that old man holding the gun at Ethan, because right in front of the house, as you can see, we're zoomed in here. You see the crosses, the tombstones, whatever you want to call it, scarecrows. It looks like the same area, and in that trailer, we saw him in the house with Emily, and he was holding the shotgun in the trailer. So we haven't seen much of him since
or the hunting
trailer.
rifle, whatever
it is.
Yeah,
shotgun,
whatever it is.
hunting rifle, a gun. So, and it looks like near where all of these grave spots are, this grave site, this graveyard, there's a church, or an area that looks like a church. It looks like the demon door right here.
Yeah,
This looks like the demon door right next to this little pointed, and again, I'm zooming in so you guys can see it, but this pointed little area here. There could be a church. Maybe that's where the bells toll. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's similar to RE4. But John, what the fuck is this?
All
down
right,
here?
so before we get to the bubblegum machine,
Because it's right next to
Yeah.
this house.
yeah, so this Louisa's house is there, and then obviously Anthony made the connection, like, hey, it could be Emily's escape thing from the Stronghold because it leads right down into the village. I think it's important that what we're speculating to possibly be the demon door, we're pretty sure it is the demon door.
It looks
because it's at the end of the cemetery, and we're gonna wrap this real quick. The Maiden of War, which is here too as well, which is the statue of the woman holding the saber or the sword and the shield with the ram skull or the ram head on it. That looks like it lines up perfectly with that demon door. So that looks to be the door to the entrance of Castle Dimitrescu, which is interesting because that means we might not be getting to the castle until the second or third, I'm going to call them chapters of the game, right? Resident Evil 4 chapter, get it? But like you might not be getting there until like a 3-1 or a 3-2. Not that I think chapters are returning. I'm just saying. I'm just using it as a reference point. But back to what Anthony was pointing at here, that looks like it's coming in from the forest.
This looks like some troll shit.
I can only describe this as Benson from the regular show. That's what this is. He is here.
It's
and
like a
he's
gumball head
looking for
looking
Rigby
thing.
and Mordecai, and he's trying to figure out why they're here.
He's looking for Emily.
He's looking for Emily. I don't know what that is.
He's fucking up their windmills.
But that looks like some spooky shit.
Yeah, that just looks weird.
You know
I
what it
honestly
reminds
don't
me
even
of?
know what to make of that.
You know what it reminds me of? In Dark Souls 1, there was a enemy in the DLC area. They had huge heads with a bunch of eyes on them, and they had long arms, and they were kind of like the regular humanoid enemy of that area. Okay. That's what that reminds me of. Not that it looks super detailed, but the big head. That's spooky.
Yeah, it's pretty scary. I really don't know what to make of that, because even if you kind of zoom in, you don't really know. Like, again, it looks like someone just like pasted it there on some troll shit, but it's not. It's actually on the official release of this thing.
Yeah, I think they're called Bloated Villager or something like that. Yeah, they are the
Gumball Man.
Oh, their official name is
again.
just Ulasil Resident.
Okay.
It kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
I don't know either.
Why is it in the forest? Why
I'd love
is it
to know
further
anybody's
away?
theory.
Yeah,
why
let
it
us
looks
know.
like it's like walking through the forest.
Yeah, definitely let us know.
Maybe it's Chris.
Yeah, he's just walking.
Maybe-
I like how if they represented him with like shorts on and fucking a gumball head.
Yeah, a gumball
like
head.
a dickhead. A literal dickhead.
Maybe it's Chris. Maybe it's Krauser.
Maybe it's the village.
Maybe it's Leon, dude. Maybe it's Barry coming for his daughter, Natalia, who's obviously the bad guy, you know?
Yeah, clearly. Yeah, Natalia.
No, we're just memeing.
But yeah,
so we already went over the Maiden of War. We're going to go to the left here. Actually, we'll save that for the last. We'll save that for the last one.
Yeah.
Let's go down to the good old Moreau Reservoir.
Moreau Reservoir, right next to the windmills.
Yes.
Which a windmill.
And the sluice gate. We'll kind of cover this all at once.
Right. Because it's all next. It looks like it's right near the water area of the village.
Yeah. What's the sluice gate, Anthony?
The sluice gate is used to control flow of water.
Yep.
And the water levels. And it looks like there's 2 of these gates to section off the
abomination that is that fish.
And the abomination is the lake monster, which isn't El Lago, but it is something that looks like it has multiple eyes in the front. That's what I think those little white spectacles are.
Yeah, the only thing I could tell you is it literally looks like it came from Bloodborne. Like that's the only way I can describe it.
It looks like I mean, this in first person just looks like it's gonna be a crazy fucking boss fight.
Oh,
I can't even imagine. Like RE4, we have a vision of like what that looks like because we've been playing that fight since like 2005.
Yeah.
But now it's like, how the hell do you fight this thing in first person perspective?
If you're even gonna fight it.
That's true.
If you're even gonna fight it.
That's true. But again, like
I'm sure you are.
What a cock tease if they just have it at the bottom of the map and you just don't fight it.
I mean, there's so much stuff we could talk about with this monster. It almost warrants its own video. Because, like, with the windmill, so the windmill itself, windmills traditionally have always been used for, like, grinding grain, pumping water, and draining, like, land water. Like, if there's, like, puddles and shit, like, they would take the windmills and they would, instead of having the ground being oversaturated with water, they would drain it back into the reservoir or whatever. But, I mean, the water flow is almost like this village is like a living character is kind of what Peter Fabiano and his crew said.
That's what they've been reinstating since the
beginning,
of this thing.
literally. Yeah. And the water comes in from the top and kind of goes in, and everything that, that goes under the suspension bridge, it looks like kind of.
And nowadays, that technique is used for electricity. Nowadays.
Yeah, nowadays the windmills are used for electricity, and we do know that it is 2020 or around 2020 in this village because it's 2 to 4 or however many years after.
Right.
It doesn't look like it goes under the suspension bridge, but it kind of does, but it might not. I don't know, but it definitely comes down and then kind of goes to the sluice gate. So they're controlling this area, and a reservoir has always been primarily used to kind of like it's the drinking water, right? So where have we seen drinking water being contaminated before and then spread throughout a place like a virus? Well, we've seen that in Resident Evil before. They did that in Vendetta, Glen Arias. They spread the virus, the dormant virus, the one half of it, into the drinking water, and they infected all these people. So it's possible that this demon fish, or whatever you want to call it, this football fish, this whatever, bloodborne fish, is the source of the corruption that Mother Miranda is putting in the drinking water to kind of get and turn these other enemies into what they're doing. Now, we know that Castle Dimitrescu isn't drinking no damn water.
No.
They're drinking the blood of virgins.
They're drinking that fucking blood, son.
So like, if that's the case, if they're drinking alcohol and wine and they've been around since the 50s and they're basically immortal, they don't need water. But who does need water? The villagers need water, right? So the villagers and all these beast men, and they have like it's literally so inspired by Bloodborne, it's not even funny. First of all, not the story, the look of every character. Like it screams to me, which is great because I love Bloodborne, right? But if that monster, if that is actually a monster and not just a figurative thing, and that is the source of the corruption, because it's huge. If that's contaminating the drinking water, and it's what's being used against these other houses potentially, because one of the theories that Anthony and I came up with, we were sitting here talking before recording the video, is it feels like Mother Miranda and Castle Dimitrescu have an alliance, but it feels like Mother Miranda doesn't necessarily have the support of the other three.
Yeah, it just seems like very like isolated, like it's like a democracy.
Yeah, it's like a democracy because Heisenberg seems to be doing his own thing, and the Beastmen are kind of just being the victims of all this.
Around in the middle, in between everything.
We could be looking at a civil war between Dimitrescu, Moreau, Mother Miranda against Beneviento and Heisenberg.
And then Ethan and then the baby just gets caught in the middle for the ceremony.
Right. It's very clear that the ceremony site has the 4 kings, right?
Yep.
So the 4 kings, the 4 dukes, the 4 lords, whatever you want to call
Rules
them.
of 4 in RE.
Rules of 4, right? We've seen it on the wall before with the 4 houses, and they're all represented by one of those kings,
Yeah,
right?
the umbrella logo showing
So
on
it's
this as
probably,
well.
what is the word? House matriarch or something like that? Like the beginning of each house. Those probably represent the 4 founding fathers of these houses. And the ceremony site might need
some kind of sacrificial piece
thing.
being the baby. Yeah.
Or the baby, right? The baby could be sacrificed. It could be like a Dark Souls thing where, the Lord of Cinders have all given up and they don't want to relink the fire. And House Dimitrescu and Mother Miranda's like, they're going to link the fire whether they want to or not. And then there's a war where they're trying to kill Heisenberg. There's so many things that we have here that like we can look at and speculate. Because, like, let's say you have to sacrifice blah, 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 and you need them to be powered. You need their flesh, their blood to power the ceremony, let's pretend, right? Because of the statue.
Yeah, right,
where they look
right.
like they're sacrificing the man or the woman or whoever it is. It would be interesting if Ethan, who's going through and giving, either her daughter's trouble, giving these other houses trouble maybe he's picking them off one by one and he's defeating them. Maybe the fish is the Moreau founding father, and maybe he's just been morphed into some crazy shit, right? And now he's contaminating the drinking water because Mother Miranda killed him. Are they all immortal? Is only Alcina immortal? But then if Alcina's immortal, how does she still have a little brother who's alive if all of the daughters in the castle don't know what men look like?
And he has telekinesis.
Or some people were pointing out it could be his hammer being magnetic. Regardless, he has different technology. But is this spirituality versus machine? Is it technology versus mind? Is Heisenberg and Dimitrescu, because we could very well be looking at the reason why we don't have any of these other people's names is because Moreau and Beneviento are gone already.
Right.
We could get into this game. Ethan and Chris
And
could be
stuff
coming
could
into this
be-
game, and it's just Dimitrescu and Miranda versus Heisenberg.
Because this shit's been hitting the fan in this village for a while, even beyond, like, they've been having their own personal war, even beyond just the story. Now, RE7 does take place, I wanted to go back on this, in July 2017. So this probably
2017,
takes
yeah.
place
Okay.
2020,
July-ish,
2021, or whatever the case
years
may be.
after. So this could be in the fall.
So-
it's definitely in the fall. Well, it would depend. I guess we
Winter.
could Google.
I guess
we
winter,
could Google
right? 'Cause the
Romania's
snow?
winter.
Right,
Yeah, when it snows.
But, like, yeah, man, I mean, there's so much that can happen with all of these families and these characters all having their own plans and all having their own initiative in here, because it already feels so much more filling and there's so much more to explore
it
than
says-
obviously the bakers in the Baker house.
It says in Romania during winter, which is December and January, the plains of Romania have about 30 days of snowfall per year.
So this
it's
is
probably December or January. It's probably December.
Right.
The end of the year. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like
yeah.
a end of year ceremony. I wouldn't be surprised if they were cheeky and made the game take place on the 31st or leading up to the 31st, right?
Yeah, there's so much shit. I mean, it just feels more, even just looking at this map to kind of wrap it all up here, it just feels more, I don't know. I mean, the last thing we didn't really talk about was the
Heisenberg factory.
The Heisenberg factory.
Yeah,
That's kinda the
which
last
is
thing.
what we were going to get into now.
Yeah.
The Heisenberg factory itself there's really not much to talk about other than the fact there appears to be a giant horse. Now, other than the giant gargoyle, all of the weird things seem to be in black.
Mhm.
The bubblegum machine guy's wearing black. I can't get over the Benson.
Yeah.
The horse is in black. The fish monster is in black. What is the horse, Anthony? Is it a monster? Is it a statue?
Right. Is it just there?
Is it just to represent that maybe the Heisenberg factory is horse powered?
Right, because you see the horse on the obvious logo, which shows a horseshoe. So it's like there's a horse right front and center as soon as you enter the factory. But the factory looks just like everything else, older, run down. Will we be versing Heisenberg in this factory? Will we
Is he
find
just
out more
testing
about
us?
him? Is he testing us? Yeah.
Because when he says, let's see what you're really made of. And I can't unsee
is he just
Kid
going to
Rock.
follow us from that point
Yeah.
on to the game, depending on when we hit up this factory first? Because We could hit this place up. That could be the first place you go to because it leads right next to the ceremony site, right in the center of the game.
We could also potentially have a choice.
That's what we've been talking about forever. Is like, what if you could just choose a certain way? Like I do a playthrough and play it a certain way, and you do a playthrough, play it a certain way, and you go about whatever area you want to
then
first.
Again, the little bubblegum machine guy could represent where Ethan enters the village. Because they do crash on the dirt on the path.
That's true.
And he climbs through the snow into the forest.
But why would they put that on the map?
Because well, maybe he doesn't have a face because he doesn't have a face.
He doesn't have a face, but why does he look like a girl in booty shorts? Yeah, everything here looks awesome. I'm pretty excited to see this, at least in full RE engine form, to make like a full opinion on the environments. But very creepy.
Very creepy. I guess
we can only really talk about like the castle and what we saw in game.
Yeah.
And all I can say right now is from what we saw in Maiden, I think the castle does feel and remind me of stuff that I've seen in Resident Evil's past as far as castle and mansion. So we can only talk about obviously one of these areas that we saw in real time in the RE engine, other than what we saw in the gameplay footage that they showed us at the developer breakdown. But I'm excited that we, did this. We talked about it because a lot of people wanted us to dissect this more because everything else was coming out all at once. But this was one of the ones, like John mentioned, where they put this out, and it also, like, they didn't explain anything else other than what we already saw. They didn't explain any other characters other than what we saw with Dimitrescu and Heisenberg. So there's a lot of questions that's going to be on here.
I actually have more to say.
Yeah.
Believe it or not. So, just to kind of wrap up my thoughts, because I'm really glad we did this too, and I'm glad we waited to do it because there's a lot of stuff that we wouldn't have included in this if we would have waited, or if we wouldn't have waited, I mean, rather. But I really like the dynamic of, like, you have, like, your castle, right? And their logo has swords in it, and they have the flower. It's very regal. It's very, it reminds me kind of the Ashfords, right? Where it's got, like, this, like, air to it. And they're, like, vampire ladies, right? And obviously the castle used to be inhabited with a bunch of people, but now men are gone because it's just the three daughters and Lady Dimitrescu, Alcina, right? And then you have the gargoyles, right? I like how it's like royal and it's the centerpiece of the village, right? And then you have the reservoir, who is all about water. And then what do you know? Their depiction is a siren or a mermaid. Then you have the Heisenberg factory, and their logo is what? It's a horse and a horseshoe.
Right.
They're the workhorses, right? This is a living, breathing thing. I actually think Peter has a really good point here. And then you have the sun and the moon, which is where? In the sky. It also looks like it's the highest point in the village.
It does.
It looks like it's overlooking everything else, kind of like how the sun and the moon have an eternal gaze upon the earth, right? So what is Beneviento? Who's in there? Why does it look like a Spencer house instead of the rest of the village? Like, why does it look so different? I think this is a very good indication that they put a lot of faith and work into making this a living, breathing society. You have the windmills, you have the mill, you have the reservoir. You see where the villagers are getting their food. You see where they're getting their water. They have the forest. I'm sure they're hunting. There's deer skulls everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? There's a whole bunch of stuff. There's a jawbone everywhere. They protect from evil. There's all kinds of things in here. There's birds. We've seen birds, obviously. The birds, you never forget the birds, the crows and stuff.
Yep.
But it's such a breathing and living thing. And then right in the middle of that, you have the ceremony site, which is like some fucking shit right out of Dark Souls. Or the Lord of the Rings, even.
Well, a lot of those things, even like Dark Souls and Bloodborne, it's like it's all influenced by Gothic horror.
Exactly.
Which is clearly what
Gothic
this
horror,
is
medieval
by,
horror,
right.
whatever.
So it's like they're all taking influence from the main source, which is horror, and it's like it's crazy because everything that we're talking about now, we don't even have all the answers, but it's already feels so much more.
I like it.
Filled, and like they actually really put thought into the characters and areas, and I personally, and me and John, I could speak for him too, like we didn't feel that way with the Bakers. Like I understand that they were trying to show us, they were trying to show us Lucas, and they were trying to show us this elements of the families that's all fucked up, but this being on a bigger scale, I think benefited a little bit more than what 7 did. I think it's fair to say, because I think we're going to get a lot more content out of it. I think it's going to be a longer game.
I
don't know. Like you said, it just feels like this is a living, breathing society for years already, and we're just jumping into it.
I want to put this in perspective, right? for just argument's sake of why, and we're going to do a whole video on why we're more excited about Village in 7 than we were about 7. Because even going into 7, I don't think both of us were that excited. It was cool because it was new.
But we were cautious.
And we were cautious.
The demo definitely got me excited, and then I ended up, it kind of like fell a little bit short of what I expected it to be. But
if you take the village right there, just the village, you cut everything else out of the map, that was where 7 took place. In that amount of area. And then you went to the boat, the bayou, whatever. Maybe you add the reservoir onto it. This is shaping up already in size alone to be more than double the size of 7's area. I would argue probably triple because of scale, right? It's going to be a longer game. What's the number one complaint fans had about 2 Remake, 3 Remake, and 7? They wanted it to be longer, right? 7 was probably the longest for a new play. Like a new playthrough.
Depending on just like every Resident Evil game, that's debatable.
It's debatable.
Depending on the player and how fast it can run.
I don't count Resident Evil 2 Remake's 4 scenarios as being a longer game. You play 1 A and B and you're done. That's how long the game is.
Right.
I get the content length is different, but then motherfuckers go play Skyrim. You got 100 hours of bullshit that doesn't matter.
And you can do just the main quest.
Literally just do the main quest in 47 minutes.
Right.
People do it in less than that for the speedrun record. But if I was playing Skyrim and I was just doing the main story, it's a 5-hour game.
Mm-hmm.
If you just do the story.
Right.
It's what everything else that makes that's what slaps that sticker on the back of the box. It's what The Witcher did. That's what Skyrim does. That's what all these Assassin's Creed games are doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Shout out to Danger Dylan. Put 110 hours in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and his game is literally broken to the point where he can't continue because there's so many errors and glitches with that game.
Right.
They pack in all this stuff, right? Resident Evil, the reason why I prefer Resident Evils no matter how long they are is because it always feels like what you're doing in the game, even 7, you're experiencing it for the first time, and then once you're done with it, you're done. Mm-hmm. And they tell for the most part a consistent story from beginning to end. Not all the games are great at that. Zero's not great at that. I would argue 7's not great at that, and Code Veronica's not that great at that either. Every game has its struggles. But 7's gameplay is phenomenal. The best first-person game I've played in a long time, right? The smoothest controls and everything. If they put that effort that they put into 7's control and gameplay presentation with this thematic that we've seen in Maiden and we've seen in the gameplay trailers and stuff, this is going to be a knockout game, man. I would go on record here at the end of this breakdown for this map and say you're probably looking at Resident Evil's #1 selling title right here. This is probably going to sell more on opening day than any of the other games have ever sold.
Yeah, I mean RE2 right now is the second best selling.
RE2 Remake.
RE2 Remake is the second best.
On its initial launch, we're talking about. We're not talking about lifetime sales. But, like, the hype for Resident Evil Village and the memes and the attention is unparalleled. No other game has ever gotten this much attention.
And I thought the hype for RE7 was big because of the teaser demos and what they were releasing.
Face cam streamers.
The dummy finger.
Everything.
Figuring out what works. All that stuff. I thought that was the biggest hype. No,
Village.
Lady Dimitrescu
and her titties, bro.
All seen it.
No, there's no comparison. There's no comparison.
There's no comparison. It's going to be a big release, guys.
It's going to be huge. Now, is it going to be the best in the series?
That's what we're going to talk about.
It's remains to be seen.
That's what we're going to talk about when we get there. And like, but people said, like what John said too. It's like RE7 too. Like we loved RE7, and for the most part. But there was the issues with the story that we had. But it doesn't mean
love is tough sometimes.
Yeah,
and we're tough on Resident Evil 7. I'm not going to say we're not.
We're just trying to be honest with you guys. But we are obviously feeling a lot more confident and positive towards this because I think RE7 did what it needed to do to put stuff in the right direction, in the right setting, as far as like scaling it back from what we got with the action-packed RE6. Do you guys want another RE6? No.
No.
You don't.
Even though I enjoyed RE6, I don't want another RE6.
We enjoy RE6 for multiple reasons. We have, some campaigns are stronger than others. The story was still all over the place. Bulldogs.
The Bulldogs.
The Bulldog attack. The useless skill points. But there's a lot, right? And then RE7 did make us happy in some way, and it didn't. And, but at the same time, we are embracing this with as much positivity as we can because we are liking what we've seen and played. I mean, the demo The demo, like, we could have saw the demo and been like,
Dude,
we didn't really get us excited, but the demo really did heighten our excitement with everything going on, and all the info we got with it just really makes this.
Yeah.
And like what John said, this run with the hype and Lady Dimitrescu and everything, it definitely is on a level that
It's bigger
I've
than
never
RE2
seen. We've never
Remake's
seen-
hype.
Yeah.
Because RE2 and 3 catered towards Resident Evil fans, right? Resident Evil 7 and 8 don't just cater towards Resident Evil fans.
It's going towards the casuals.
It's going towards everyone.
Just
it's
everyone.
going towards casuals. It's going towards horror fans.
Right.
It's going towards Dark Souls fans at this point.
It's trying to get
Like,
into as many houses
how
as
many
possible.
first-person
30.
horror games do you see that take place in castles and villages and with zombies and witches and all this stuff that carry the legacy and the gold stamps of approval like Resident Evil? You get your Dark Ascension, or what the hell is that game called? Amnesia. You get your Amnesias. You get your, whatever else there is. I don't know. Maybe I'm just uncultured with them. But there's not very many games that have this aesthetic in the first-person survival horror sense. Predominantly, these themes are seen in RPGs. And this is not an RPG game.
Right. And so whether or
Because
not...
shooters go sci-fi. And you can attest to this, Ant, because you play a lot more shooters than I do.
Sure.
They go military realistic or they go sci-fi.
Yeah.
How often do you see them go back to this aesthetic? Now, obviously, it's 2020. So it's around 2020 is the game when the game takes place. So it is modern day.
But it's throwing you into a world that just feels like it never left that era that
it never left the
came
era.
from.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
How often do you get to see something like this executed? I would say never.
Right.
Almost never.
Because the Baker House was like, I just feel like there was so much more they could have done with that, and I think they're fixing it now with giving us a much more explorable area, but also layers. I didn't really feel there was a lot of layers in RE7 like there was with
there was
other
the mine,
games before.
the ship, the Baker farm.
And then if you count the DLC, you got the swamps, more of the swamps.
The swamps. So you got 4 areas, right? And in here, you have 4 areas. But you also have the village, which is the 5th area. And it's like...
Now, if it's just short, then we'll stand corrected on what we're saying.
Oh, if it's short, then we're going to give it the same amount of criticism as we do 7.
Exactly.
Just like
exactly.
we were
Nothing
hard
is...
on 3 Remake and 2 Remake, right? Like, I am pissed about 2 Remake, and everybody knows I love that game, but I don't get the hate for disliking that I do for 7, because 7 is just... Whenever there's a popular opinion and you're not with the popular opinion, people are going to be upset and they're going to take it the wrong way.
Right.
Some people don't, though.
Some people understand where we're coming from.
Some people, understand where we're coming from,
or
and
they've
they
been
respect our
listening
opinion.
since we covered that years ago.
Yeah, and some people, we do the natural progression of things. We live off the high, and then when we come down, things change. With Remake 3
or we
and 2.
beat it multiple times, and then we
go,
talk
this
about
fetching
it.
game
Right.
is impossible. I am so done with RE0. I've beat that game 7 times in the last 2 weeks. I hate that game, right? That game is, I'm like, I never want to see that game again, although we're returning next Tuesday with the fucking game, of course. But, because just rub the cigarette in my wound, right? But, it is what it is. I'm really excited for Village, and this map breakdown video has been, great, and it does what Resident Evil 7 for me never did, which is... We entered this map breakdown. Here we are almost 50 minutes later. And we still have questions that we want to ask. Who is the big gargoyle? Is it the father of the Dimitrescu people? Right? Is it the founding father? Are these giant things the founding fathers turned mutants?
Are they using that baby as the ceremony sacrifice?
Yeah. Is Alcina connected to the progenitor virus? Was she born with a progenitor virus?
We got this flower hanging around.
There's a
all
flower
over the
hanging
place.
around. Is the flower the progenitor virus flower, like in Resident Evil 5? Is this tying in Resident Evil 5? Because if this is tying in Resident Evil 5, it feels like 4. It's got the castle and the solo feel of 1 through Code Veronica. It's got the fucking Watergate from 4. Or the water monster from 4. It's got the fucking... the prison...
It's got the Duke.
It's got the Duke. It's got the Merchant from 4. This feels like the love letter of the first trilogy and the second trilogy finally kind of coming together, minus 6. They took 6 away. And the tie-ins that are potentially there, Not saying they will be there. There's still a chance they're not going to be.
Really hope they do tie
Hope
it back
they
to
are.
the original lore,
I
because
mean,
that would be a kick in the balls.
Dude, we're talking
to
about
us,
things like,
because we're big on lore.
We're big on lore, right? So like we're talking about things like with Mother Miranda and the mold. Are we going to see an Orochimaru dynamic? Is the baby going to be Evelyn?
Mm-hmm.
Does Evelyn live in the mold? Is it like Orochimaru where he lives in his cursed seals from Naruto? Like, even if you kill Orochimaru, he's still around because he's copying himself.
He's just inside like some other entity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you're not an anime fan, is he pulling a Voldemort from Harry Potter? Like, is he everywhere? Is his soul fragmented?
Right.
You know, like hers, I should say. I was saying Voldemort, but like Evelyn. Is Evelyn going to is the mold going to play a role? That fish monster looks like a molded to me.
It does.
It looks like a molded. So is the mold playing a role in this?
And that's the big thing too. It's like making sure that, you know, all of these explanations are believable in a sense in this current timeline, where we're not like, okay, that overstepped it, or I felt like that really overstepped it more than what 7 did, or these are stuff we don't know yet.
This needs to make 7 feel like it belongs. Because right now, to me, story-wise, no matter what you say, whether it feels like Resident Evil has the spirit of Resident Evil, they're all debatable, and I agree and disagree with certain points of each. 7 does not feel like it belongs with the rest of the franchise. It feels like a spin-off.
Agreed.
But Village can make 7 feel like it belongs. 7 could be Village's 0 to remake.
Mm-hmm.
But this time around, 7's story is probably, I would argue, even though it's not told in my favorite order, it's at least more consistent with Village than 0 was with remake, with Rebecca being different. And that's the other thing.
Yeah.
I was talking about this with somebody on Discord, and it came down to, like, is Ethan being more chatty, being different and changing? Are we going to run into another Rebecca scenario where Ethan is unidentifiable between both games,
because
like Rebecca?
of fan feedback?
Because of fan feedback. Well, that wasn't fan feedback.
Right.
Rebecca.
No.
But Ethan.
No. But Ethan, yes.
But Ethan,
yeah. Ethan.
Rebecca was, she could handle herself on her own. She could do all these things.
And they said that in the breakdown, where we wanted to give Ethan a face and a personality.
A personality.
Like a voice behind that face.
And they didn't say it was because we were saying that, but it was because we were saying that. Like they wanted to make him a character in his own right.
Ethan's
and
hands is a meme at this point, so it's like you got to make it like
it's a meme.
Yeah, you have this chance to give these characters and stuff that was set up in 7 more substance, and it can definitely have us look back on 7 and be like, all right, now that 7 and 8 are together,
7 and 8,
it might fix a lot of those issues, because now we might get those answers, man.
Remember?
It's never
I said
too
it
late.
on the channel. I said, and on Discord, I said, I can forgive a lot of 7's problems that I have with it if they don't do it dirty. I know that sounds weird. I'm asking them not to do 7 dirty, but if they just fucking forget all about 7,
and we don't get any
7 is going to go down as my least favorite title in the game. I'm going to be like, why did they even bother?
And they're selling it with a bundle. They're selling it with 7 and 8. They're making it really seem like you have to play the game to get everything.
Right, what you just said. They're bundling it together literally like 0 and remake.
Yes.
Because it's the soft reboot, like we said.
Yep.
0 and 7 and 8, you need to get both sides of the story. If you play 0 before remake, you have no fucking clue what's going on. If you play remake before 0, you kind of do, because that was where the franchise started. But if you play 0 before remake, you ruin a lot of the plot twists. You ruin Wesker because you see him. Right, you ruin you don't, because they're kind of they literally tells you right in the beginning about Code Veronica, Survivor, lol, and remake. Right, it tells you about them in the beginning of 0, so you're like, why am I playing this first? Because it was a prequel. 7 is a prequel to Village, but not in the traditional sense as to where it came out afterwards. I feel like Village is the unlinked story that's going to link back to the history of Resident Evil,
not just 7, but the history through Village. Yes.
And if they do that, story-wise, even though I still don't think 7's story was presented properly, I think it could have had better potential in different areas,
and it could have had more weight to stand on its own, which each game should do initially. You shouldn't have to rely on another game to adjust itself.
Exactly,
right? But it can always fix stuff in the future timelines, which we don't
Exactly.
want to forget about. We also don't want to see it mishandled
I don't,
in the
yeah.
future. So it's like, you got to get it right now, Capcom.
Yeah, and because, you know, there's so many more things we didn't even talk about in this video. We have other videos we're doing, things like the connections in Wesker's organization, making the mold in 2000, and then if the mold was made in 2000, how did they have the mold in the 50s? Is the mold an alien substance introduced for Miranda to maybe take power control on a power creep? Is the Veronica virus around? Because we do see insects again, and, you know, Veronica virus is very tied to the T Veronica, for those people who are critical, tied to the insects and stuff like that with Alexia and her, you know, psychotic nature, and there's these bug princesses, whatever you want to call them, witches. What's going on? We want to know all your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, let us know in the comments below.
Hopefully you enjoyed this this map breakdown video. It kind of turned into more of like, we also wanted you can't look at this map and not have questions. So we wanted to kind of have a discussion piece at the end there. Let us know what you think about everything.
Yeah, hit the thumbs up if you enjoy this video.
Leave a comment. Make sure you subscribe, and make sure you join the Discord.
Yeah, we got plenty more Village stuff coming out.
Tons.
Keep you
I was
guys
going to say
in the loop.
100, maybe.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
tons more
By
stuff
the end,
for
yeah.
Village. And please let us know in the comments below,
Gotta let us know.
what is Benson doing here from the regular
Yeah,
show?
what the hell's he
Who
doing?
is the gumball guy? Is that Ethan?
And how do you feel about this map?
And how do you feel about this
our
map? And are you
breakdown.
excited to get a cloth map instead of a plastic map? Because I am.
Yeah. I mean, the thing,
Is it
the only
plastic?
thing is
What
that
is it? What is it? What is
it's
it
not.
considered? It's like wax
it's like paper.
or-
Yeah, it's just like the one for remake was kind of like wax paperish. Like the map.
What
the
is the
Spencer
poster
map.
paper? I guess it's just poster paper.
It's just poster
Yeah,
paper, but
instead of
some of
poster
them,
paper.
granted though, some of them do have like a heavier weight
Yeah,
to them.
yeah.
Some of them are lighter, so hopefully it's more like the silk cloths that I got from China, like the RE5 one and the remake one. They're all silk from China. Really nice. But yes, let us know your comments down below, and stay tuned for more Let's Talk Resident Evil content.
This video was brought to you by our supporters over on Patreon, where users like John Lemley make it possible to keep on delivering awesome content. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that like button. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.